The largest working prison farms in the nation.
Prisoners are routinely assigned to work in agricultural fields, often without proper gear, shade, or rest. These duties are not optional. Those who refuse risk disciplinary action, including solitary confinement. Inmates are made to stoop for hours, picking vegetables and pulling weeds in rows that stretch across thousands of acres. In some cases, they must use their bare hands or outdated tools to carry out this physically exhausting work. These tasks are often assigned regardless of a prisoner's health status, age, or medical conditions, raising serious ethical and legal concerns. What amplifies the danger of this labor is the punishing Louisiana heat. During summer months, when temperatures regularly soar past 100 degrees Fahrenheit, prisoners are still required to work outdoors, supervised by armed guards on horseback.
Fam, what's good, man? It's your boy, the King, and today, start over. Fam, what's good, man? It's your boy, the King, and this is the Incarceration Podcast, where we talk about prison, pre, post, and present, how everything that I experienced throughout my incarceration has forever changed my life. All right, so today we are doing a reaction video inside Angola prison, one of the most historic, famous, known as the most violent, one of the most violent prisons in the nation. Let's go ahead and check it out.
Louisiana has some of the toughest sentencing laws in the country, and these guys are not going home.
From the outside, it might look like a relic of the past, part history museum, part film set, maybe even a tourist stop on the edge of the Deep South. But don't let the brochure-friendly image fool you. What's happening behind the walls of Louisiana's Angola prison isn't just disturbing. It's something far worse, hiding in plain sight. The deeper you look, the more questions emerge. Who gets to tell the story? And what's being left out? One part of this prison's public image is so carefully crafted that it might distract you from what's actually unfolding on the ground. What if the real danger of Angola isn't just what happens inside, but how the outside world chooses to see it?
Roughly 75% of the prisoners are here serving life sentences without the possibility of parole.
Angola's dark origins. The Louisiana State Penitentiary, better known as Angola, is more than just a prison. It is a direct extension of America's legacy of slavery.
Louisiana State Penitentiary in Angola is one of America's most unusual prisons because it is, in some ways, a plantation.
Located on an 18,000-acre plot that once housed several slave plantations, Angola was named after the African country from which many enslaved people were forcibly taken. Following the abolition of slavery, this land was repurposed not for liberation, but for continued exploitation. In the late 19th century, the state began leasing convicts, most of them black, to private companies, who used them for labor on the same fields that once held enslaved Africans. This convict leasing system, often described by historians as slavery by another name, formed the foundation for what Angola would eventually become, the largest maximum security prison in the United States. The physical transformation from plantation to prison changed little in terms of labor structure. The rows where enslaved people once toiled now see incarcerated men bent over crops, often under armed watch. Though the tools and uniforms may differ from the 1800s, the basic reality, black men working for nearly no pay in dangerous and exhausting conditions, has remained disturbingly consistent. These fields are not symbolic relics. They remain active, producing food primarily for the prison itself, and sometimes generating profit through agricultural sales. Inmates, often earning mere cents per hour, continue to perform this labor with limited rights and few avenues for recourse. The persistence of this system prompts difficult questions about whether Angola has ever truly left its past behind, or if it simply adapted it. In present-day Angola, the demographic landscape paints a picture of this uncomfortable continuum. According to the recent data, approximately 74% of the prison population is black.
More than half of them had life sentences.
All right, let's go ahead and stop it right there. Great historical overview. So we've seen at the beginning of the video, 75% of the incarcerated population in Angola has been sentenced to life. Max unit, supermax, 75% of the population been sentenced to life. But look at the historical background of the prison system, bro. Prison is just modern day slavery. And personal experience being locked up in prison in Florida for 12 years, the biggest contract, to my knowledge, that the state of Florida has when it comes to the labor of the incarcerated population is the, what is it called? Department of Transportation, DOT. That means people who are at a work camp and can go outside the gate. You know, they're out here, you know, with officers and vans, and they're just mowing grass and the highways and going in these deep ditches and just doing all the, you know, work out on the Department of Transportation. Free labor for the county, the state, or even contracting them to these businesses for a profit. I don't know if that still happens today, but in a sense, you can hear and you can see the historical facts. Man, prison, even now today, not just a place of punishment, but we can see it's $1 billion industry. And for the most part, we can go back to the war on drugs and just the minority populations that are specifically strategically targeted when it comes to certain types of crimes being sentenced to prison. Pretty much is modern day slavery, bro.
77% were African American.
While the proportion of the black population in Louisiana is significantly lower than that of the population imprisoned in Angola. This disproportionate representation fits into the broader U.S. criminal justice system, where systemic racism has led to the incarceration of higher numbers of black Americans. The impact of that disparity is glaring in Angola. The imprint of chattel slavery finds a resonance in the racial composition of the present-day inmates and their near-identical manner of laboring. This does not mean that Angola is simply a construction of contingencies. The history of its planning and building has been subjected to systems of deliberate choices and laws, political and economic decisions that have ensured the continuation of this institution, perceived by many as a means of control rather than rehabilitation. Can a place birthed out of racial exploitation really be just in its actions, or will it remain forever shackled by the weight of its origins? And just when you think the past couldn't echo any louder, the present adds a brutal new layer, one that scorches under the Louisiana sun. Backbreaking labor in sweltering heat. The farm line at Angola Prison is one of the most visible continuations of exploitative labor practices within the U.S. prison system.
Roughly the size of Manhattan Island, Angola includes...
I'm gonna go ahead and stop right there again real quick. So myself personally, bro, a lot of times whenever I was incarcerated, I was either HO4, which is like a housing level, like the very highest housing level under like death row, because I had an escape DR from my first bid. I deviated at work release, and it kept my custody or my housing level very high. So I was never really able to go to a work camp and leave the prison facility to go outside the gate, to go to a work camp to work outside. And a lot of people complain about doing that because, you know, they slave you, you know, all day from like 6 in the morning you leave. These people ain't coming back sometimes to like 7, 8 at night, you know, on the highways or on the farm working. But there's also a lot of people who enjoyed it. And me personally, even though I guess I kind of glad I didn't, there were times where it's like, man, I kind of envied them because they were going outside the gate, going into the community, working like in neighborhoods or sometimes on the highways, and they get street food from the officer, and just working all day kind of can make their time go by fast and make them feel like, you know, they're getting outside of prison, and just speeds up your time. You know what I mean? Being busy speeds up your time. But then again, I guess it all depends upon what administration you're under, what prison you're at, and how hard they're working you. So me personally, bro, I was only at a work camp for like 3 months, but I was during COVID, and I only went outside the gate, I think, 2 days, if I'm not mistaken. But I enjoyed those 2 days. But yeah, that was it. So that was all my experience of being outside the gate.
One of the largest working prison farms in the nation.
Prisoners are routinely assigned to work in agricultural fields, often without proper gear, shade, or rest. These duties are not optional. Those who refuse risk disciplinary action, including solitary confinement. Inmates are made to stoop for hours, picking vegetables and pulling weeds in rows that stretch across thousands of acres. In some cases, they must use their bare hands or outdated tools to carry out this physically exhausting work. These tasks are often assigned regardless of a prisoner's health status, age, or medical conditions, raising serious ethical and legal concerns. What amplifies the danger of this labor is the punishing Louisiana heat. During summer months, when temperatures regularly soar past 100 degrees Fahrenheit, prisoners are still required to work outdoors, supervised by armed guards on horseback. Breaks, when granted, are short and infrequent. A class action lawsuit filed by incarcerated workers in 2023 claimed that some men collapsed from heat exhaustion, while others with underlying conditions were still forced into the fields. According to witness accounts, basic protections like sunscreen, clean water, and proper medical monitoring were inconsistently provided. For those with heart...
Speaking about heat, bro, you don't just have to be outside to experience the heat. One of the worst parts of being in prison, if you're in a two-man cell in the state of Florida and you're at a camp with no AC, only the private camps got AC or a controlled climate. That means like a slight gust of wind coming through the vents. But like, I think 85% of the prisons are the old school ones. So if you're in a two-man cell in the state of Florida during the summertime, bro, that is literally an oven. You're cooking in there. Can't even sleep at night. So hot, torturous. So you don't even got to be outside to experience the heat. But another thing when it comes to jobs, man, I've seen some guys who like have experience with electrical. So they figure out like your experience, or if you tell them when you get like, you know, go through intake in prison, and they'll give you a job assignment based upon your experience. So there's a guy who had like some type of electrical experience, and they gave him the job when they brought cameras to the facility to install cameras all throughout the prison. And I remember, bro, like he faced so much static and conflict from the incarcerated population because he's putting up like the police's security system. I think the guy that they tried to have before that refused to do it because he knew that he was going to face some conflict, and he refused to do it and went to jail. But the other guy was like, screw it, whatever. And I remember everybody was selling him out. Every time he went to a dorm to install a camera, everybody's just calling him that he's working for the police and how you going to put up that camera and this and this and that. So yeah, sometimes, bro, jobs that you get assigned in prison can be conflicting.
Conditions, diabetes, or other chronic illnesses, these circumstances were potentially life-threatening. In July 2024, U.S. District Judge Brian Jackson intervened, issuing a temporary restraining order after an emergency filing described the heat as an imminent danger to human life. The court found that Louisiana's Department of Corrections had shown deliberate indifference to the risks involved. Prison officials argued that halting field labor when the heat index reaches 88 degrees Fahrenheit would disrupt prison operations and trigger similar actions across southern states. Still, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals sided with the judge, signaling that basic protections for incarcerated individuals cannot be ignored, even in challenging climates. The ruling has not ended farm labor at Angola, but it has forced the state to acknowledge the severity of the conditions. In response, officials claimed they began issuing 5-minute breaks every 30 minutes during heat alerts and provided pop-up tents for shade. Yet, even with these adjustments, critics argue the system remains
That's John
fundamentally
Piper right there
flawed.
preaching in the chapel.
Can temporary measures truly address what many see as a deeply rooted form of exploitation? And if these changes were only implemented under legal pressure, what does that reveal about the priorities of those overseeing Angola's day-to-day operations? 13th Amendment loop.
All right, so let's go ahead and end this video right here. So I guess the takeaway in a nutshell when it comes to prison reform that is obviously needed all throughout the nation. Number one, if there's any incarcerated individual who is working, he should be getting paid, especially when it comes to some of this extreme, intense labor. You know what I mean? Bro or woman should be paid. Facts. And just, some human rights involved when it comes to water and breaks and not being slaved out. You know what I mean? Like, bro, like some administrations, some states, some prisons, bro, there's no sympathy. So obviously conversations like this need to be had. First and foremost, of course, when it comes to rehabilitation, when it comes to reform programs, education. And then whenever it does come to the work squads and people going outside to work, people should be paid so they can therefore get commissary, get canteen, get hygiene, save some money for the release, send money home to the family. Facts. So once again, man, it's your boy E.I. the King. This is the Incarceration Podcast. If you don't know, I am a rapper. Check out all my music. My artist name is E.I. the King. Check out my music on all streaming platforms. Check out my other YouTube channel, E.I. the King. Check out my music videos. And y'all watch the rest of the playlist, the full episode playlist, to see all the other fire content. And we got so much more fire content to continue to come your way. Peace.